The following is a presentation of Geekster Media.
Remember that show back then? Remember that show? Turn on the TV, time was always flying. Why did they have to end? So many shows you forgotten. Now that we've got a podcast, we can release all the shows from our hands. Yeah, will you be the most TV dudes you'll ever listen to? As long as we keep on talking sitcoms and cartoons from back in the day. Okay, we confess, we're obsessed, but we got a podcast to help you remember that show. Hey there, TV lovers, and welcome to a special Halloween bonus episode of Remember That Show? Yes, this is the podcast where we talk about the obscure or forgotten TV shows of the 80s and 90s, some of them deserving to be forgotten, some of them so forgotten there's only evidence with one episode and half of a pilot episode available. And that certainly fits the bill today as we talk about from 1990, What a Dummy. Now, this isn't going to be a regular episode. We're not doing every segment. This is literally just a general conversation, a little treat that we like to bring you every Halloween season. But Will, What a Dummy is a series that you have brought up over our 40 episodes. It just gets peppered in here and there. So I have to know, how did this get on your radar? Did you actually see it back in the day? Like, what's the story here?
I love first run syndication. I'm like the king of syndication. And this was one of those shows that was like weekend syndication. Like it wasn't off network. So it wasn't like, oh, Friends comes on weekly and now you watch it 5 days a week. This was made specifically for the weekends. And I have said in the past, like when they did Tiny Toon Adventures, that first season isn't really for kids. And when it was in syndication, like it was in first run syndication before it went to Fox Kids, and it would be paired with shows like this. So like the block that I remember is you would have What a Dummy and you would have Harry and the Hendersons, because Harry and the Hendersons lasted for years. It had Bruce, what's his name? Senator Kelly from the X-Men movie. You know, he was the Lithgow character. And like, I watched this thing every week because I had no social life. And also, this is the early 90s. So it's not like we're going out like to the mall or anything, but like, I looked forward to this. I like crap. But also, I think I gravitated towards these because they felt like what you guys were getting on cable. Because remember, I didn't grow up with cable, and early, like, original programming on cable was, like, horrible. Like, I remember seeing, like, clips on Entertainment Tonight and stuff, and they'd be like, oh, this new show coming to the Family Channel. You know, the one I always think of is Big Brother Jake, where it was Jake Steinfeld, who's Haley Steinfeld's uncle, who was, like, the fitness guy, and he goes and he, like, works in the, like, foster home in which he grew up. That thing lasted, like, 4 seasons and 88 episodes, and it was the first original sitcom for the Family Channel, and it looks just as bad as What a Dummy. So it's like I would watch these shows and think like they're not great, but this is kind of what like my friends are paying to watch, so like I got nothing else going on.
Yeah, and we should say, you know, the Harry and the Hendersons connection actually runs deep between this show and the movie, because the main young kid in this series, we'll get into it a little bit later, he was the youngest son in the Harry and the Hendersons movie that he got transferred over here. And this is an MCA television production. So that was Universal Studios. That was like their wing of television and things like that. So we should mention that this was probably being produced on the Universal Studios lot. Now, like we say here, this is kind of one of those shows where most people probably didn't catch it like you will. I was watching a lot of Saturday afternoon television. I watched Harry and the Hendersons. I'm watching Out of This World. I'm watching lots of first run syndication, Maniac Mansion on the Family Channel or whatever. But I was not seeing What a Dummy. And the crazy thing is, I mean, it had a full season technically to offer to sell to stations, but like we said, there's barely any record of it online. Like it's really hard to track down. but it does have IMDb listings, and I did find something interesting here for you. As far as the creators, the producers of the show, do you recognize the name Leslie Eberhard?
That name is vaguely familiar.
I think you have seen it many times before because she went on to be a writer and producer for USA High and Saved by the Bell, the new class.
Okay, that tracks.
Oh, and you know what I just saw here? Also Malibu CA. So
that tracks.
Yeah. She is in that camp. That is the level of comedy and the humor that we are getting here. So based on the synopsis on IMDb, but also half the pilot episode, which is available on somebody's YouTube channel, here is the setup for What a Dummy. There is a family, you know, just your standard family, right? Mom, dad, two sons, Tucker, and Corey. Tucker is the older one, played by Stephen Dorff. Yes, that's Stephen Dorff. And as I said before, Joshua Rudoy played Corey. And he's like every nerd kid of the 90s. You know, he had kind of the floppy hair and the big glasses. He could have just as easily been on Boy Meets World or any other show of the time. And they have a great uncle of the father dies. So they get invited to a memorial service with all his friends. It looked like a support group for old vaudeville actors, you know, like all old performers who had weird things that they did. Actually, it seemed like Harry Anderson from Night Court would be very at home with these people. But basically, they get a trunk full of all his possessions, what was left over. And they find inside a talking ventriloquist dummy named Buzz. And Buzz has like a big shock of like poofy red hair. He's got a checkered suit on, very expressive. And basically, Corey's best friend is moving away, and he is so sad about it. And now Buzz comes into their life, and Buzz is going to be his best friend. And that is the basic setup. Really, if you need a comparison, it's Alf with a ventriloquist dummy. Am I right, Will?
Yeah. Although I remember the pilot, like I remember watching it. I didn't find it for this. Like the episode I was able to find was just like the brothers are competing over this like sophisticated girl. But the thing that stood out to me, and then I started wondering if it's like the Mandela effect, it's almost like Family Guy, where you don't know if the family all know that Buzz is like alive, because he kind of says a lot of one-liners, but not to anyone in particular. Like he could theoretically be like an angel narrating things. They very seldom talk directly to him, and then like the adults couldn't be bothered. So I was really trying to wrestle with like, does everyone know the dummy talks? Or like,
yeah,
it's very confusing.
It is a bad setup, at least based on that one episode, because it is a generic sitcom plot. And then there is a dummy that is placed around the living room in different scenes and is commenting on everything, but is not involved. And It is so strange. Like you would think that every episode, like Alf, you know, it's kind of like every episode he's going to be there causing problems. He is driving the action. It has something to do with this dummy's perspective on the world, and the family is dealing with this wacky dummy. No, he literally is just like, he could be a decoration. And
it's Elf on the Shelf.
Yeah.
You know, like that's what it is. Like he's just hanging out here. Cause I mean, I guess with the puppeteering, they can't do like Buzz goes to the supermarket, but like he really is just kind of like in a corner, on a mantle, on the back of the couch, and he'll say something, but they don't even like laugh or like react to what he says. He's very clearly added in post. But like usually they at least like act with a tennis ball or something. No, this was a show. And then later on someone's like, something's missing. Why don't we just plug a dummy in here? You know?
I think that really was it. I think Stephen Dorff had some juice. And they're like, there's this really talented kid. He's got a lot of charisma. Let's find a vehicle for him. Because we should say, like, he is first listed in the credits. Like, it is his show. He is the cool kid. He basically, in this iteration, he looks like Sam from Clarissa Explains It All, but he's got more of like a kind of goofy, version of Zach Morris energy. It's like he's a troublemaker, but he's also kind of stupid, but he's also like, he's got rock and roll posters and bikini girls on his half of the bedroom that he shares with Corey. Like, you know who in fact, he is more of a Corey than Corey. He's a Corey Haim. That's
exactly. Like when they were casting, it just said boy, because all his posters are like the cars from the Scholastic Book Fair. Like, it's just like 1990. What is a boy? And that's
yeah. But we should talk about, just like, again, we have one episode to go off of. Although I should say, when you look at the credits for IMDb, I mean, they did have Pat Morita had made a guest appearance, Richard Belzer. I mean, the people who would make the rounds on sitcoms. Marsha Wallace, you know, I know her best as Miss Krabappel, but you probably know her from which iteration of the Bob Newhart show was she on? Newhart?
She's from the Bob Newhart show. She's not on Newhart. I remember her as like Murphy Brown's secretary, because I never watched the Bob Newhart show. I was a Newhart guy, so...
So they got some people to show up, at least for a few episodes. But the basic premise, and again, this is the level of writing we're dealing with, is so Corey is like a very intelligent genius, you know, 10-year-old, however old he is. And Tucker, the Stephen Dorff, is a cool teenager. And Corey gets a letter from a woman that says, "I would like to meet you. I find you so interesting." And so then they're like, okay, she's probably a dork if she likes you. Then,
well, first off, damage control.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. You don't know though at first. It's like, is it a woman? Is it another girl his age? And then she shows up at the door, and it's like she's got a very studious look to her, but she's obviously like hot girl they put in glasses, you know?
She's hot librarian, you know, because she doesn't come in as Kelly Kapowski. She's very straight-laced, but you expect her to like take off the glasses and let down her hair and whip it around like Tawny Katane, which we never get, by the way.
No, never happened. She is just very straight-laced. And the idea being that she is very interested intellectually in this Corey, that she read some essay that he wrote. Again, how did she get access to this? Like, why would she be involved? Where does she come from? Is she part of the school? I could not make heads or tails of that, but Tucker thinks she's attractive. So he says, "I'm Corey." And then he sits down with her, and then he tries to play smart for a little bit. And then she's always like taken aback, like, "Oh, I didn't think you would be into this. Oh no, I meant this." You know, it's that kind of joke over and over again. And then Corey comes back after the girl leaves, and he's like, "Did you ever hear from her?" "Oh yeah, she came to the door. She was ugly. You wouldn't want anything to do with her." "Oh, okay." And so
she had a mole.
Yeah, she had a mole. Yeah, and then so at that point though, he's actually like set up to meet with her again, and now he's got to be trained how to be smart, how to be Corey. So anyway, it's just that whole fake out, and then okay, she thinks he's his brother, then the brother keeps coming in, and he's like, "No, that's my brother Tucker," you know, and then so Corey, pretending to be Tucker, then comes in as total like rock and roll dude, and he brings in a radio blasting heavy metal, and he's skateboarding all over the house, and he puts gel in his hair and spikes it out to kind of ruin everything for his brother. And so it's just like, it's that level of goofiness. Again, what does it have to do with a talking ventriloquist dummy?
I was ready to say, what did you not mention in all of that? The dummy.
Dummy does nothing and makes no jokes to help. The only time you ask, like, can they actually hear the dummy? Well, according to Corey on the phone at one point, the dummy keeps talking and he has to cover the dummy's mouth because it won't stop. So that is the only indication we have that technically somebody on the other line could hear this dummy. Or is it just that Corey in his imagination can't concentrate because the dummy keeps talking to him? Could go either way, I guess.
Because I mean, the dummy on its own is creepy, so people interact with it through that, because there's a scene where she's just left by herself with the dummy, and she's like, "Why does it feel like the dummy's looking at me?" You know? But it's like, other than that, it just... the dummy means nothing. At least Harry would get into antics and go hide in the woods, and the Hendersons had to go get him. Like, even by like first run syndication standards, I got to a point where I just stopped coming in early. Like, I would just show up in time for Harry and the Hendersons. I even gave up on What a Dummy after a while.
And we should say, there is a famous ventriloquist dummy in the Goosebumps universe, Slappy, from the Night of the Living Dummy books. And of course, the movies, he's appeared in those and the TV show, all that. So is he equivalent to Slappy? I mean, pretty much. It's just his hair is more poofed out. But I mean, he's just as creepy. However, I will say the dummy work is actually impressive. Like, it is very expressive. There are scenes where they're carrying it around and it does seem to be radio controlled. So I think they did have like some technological advancement to make it worthwhile, like to have this dummy in their show. But like, again, they just seem to have no idea what to do with it. And again, we've only seen one episode. Maybe every other episode is dummy centric, but I don't think so.
Not from my memory, but also like talking about the look. I hate how Buzz looks because dummies, I think of like Howdy Doody. I think of the Goosebumps one. Like, you have this thing in your background right now. This dummy is like, what if we spliced Danny Pintaro with Carol Burnett? And that is not going to put anyone at ease, because Danny Pintaro was like the one teen star who never made it to Tiger Beat. Like, no one had Jonathan Bowers posters on their wall.
Oh, Who's the Boss only had one teen star, and that is Alyssa Milano, and I'm okay with that. But we should say, as far as the performances go, okay, say it didn't have the dummy. Would this show work? What if the Tucker character was the dummy they were referring to, I gotta say, Stephen Dorff has a lot of charisma. He is great with his comic timing, with just, again, his look for the time. He did look cool, and he carries everything. Like, you can see why they centered the show around him. And yet his little brother, Corey, this young man, I can see why he didn't get work after this. Every line is just him yelling. He's like, I can't believe you are doing this. Do you understand what you are doing? And he's just like, that's his way of emoting, is by getting louder, and he is terrible. He's so bad.
We could say it's because he wasn't cute, but like, he definitely has that feeling of like, you look him up and it's like, oh, he left acting and became an entertainment lawyer. Yeah. He took that route. I'll put it this way: it's no worse than the Hogan Family. We're not trying to win Emmys with this show, but like, for a charismatic teen star that you're hoping will transition to movies, and it doesn't even have the baggage of like Family Ties where the parents were hippies and stuff. It's more akin to like a Disney Channel, which is probably why like Eberhard is this person. It follows that teen formula where the parents don't really matter. They exist to show that these are not like abandoned children and the bills get paid, but like, it's really a kid's show. So like, on that level, it works just fine. Like, there's no B plot. Like, it's a very lean script, and they try to do something with the little girl where she's selling brownies, but like, I would say focus groups are gonna like Judy Winslow her if this show gets another season.
Well, if you look at this girl, the way she is styled and just her look, she looks like a solo Olsen twin. She's like an Olsen cousin. They were definitely going for Michelle from Full House with her. And yeah, it's like a whole thing where she's selling brownies, but they're terrible. The dummy eats a brownie. That's basically all he gets to do, is he interacts with the little girl in the opening and the credits scene. Like, basically is like, he gets a little joke about how terrible her brownies are, and it's like, you shouldn't be able to taste them, dummy. Like,
that's why I got the Family Guy vibe in the whole, like, Brian is supposedly the only one who knows Stewie can talk, but the episodes are not written that way. If you go back and watch them, you're like, oh, this hits a lot differently if you realize no one else can understand Stewie. And it's the same here, where it's like, the baby is the only one who can talk to the dummy.
Yeah, and we should say too, on the topic of the parents, you brought them up, that they're inconsequential. There were a different set of parents in the pilot. Like the mom is like this blonde woman with kind of a New York accent and stuff. And so it was just really weird when I went from the pilot to the first episode that was available, the only episode. And I was just like, oh, totally different mom, very low key brunette now, who's just kind of like, okay, you're all kind of weird. And then like, that's it. She just walks in to say, what's going on here, you weirdos? Okay, I'm out of here.
Yeah, she doesn't even get a catchphrase. But like, one thing that's worth mentioning, though, I keep bringing back the syndication aspect. In this day and age, we kind of take it for granted in like, oh, 24 comes on every Saturday night at 11 and blah, blah, blah. Because now we have these like not networks, but there's still programming blocks. Like when UPN ended, it became My Network TV. So a lot of those just show Law and Order all the time, regardless of where you are in the country. But back then, syndicated shows had to get clearance in markets. They had like conferences and stuff where they'd be like, okay, Baywatch got cleared in 95% of the market, which is great because that means the whole country's watching it. Some of these shows got like 50% clearance. So like you're saying you never watched it, it might not have aired in your market. Like that was just a thing that happened, and it even as recently as like a decade ago with strip syndication, I remember like Courtney Cox had Cougar Town. Cougar Town went into syndication. It didn't in DC. Like it wasn't clear for this market, which is insane to me. But that's the kind of games, because it's really up to the independent station owner. And if they don't feel a show appeals to their demographics or the people living in that market, they'll pass on it.
Well, growing up in Southern California, I have to imagine that Stephen Dorff was trying to make a name for himself. And once all these episodes were filmed, his agents are like, this will not be released. This is going to set him back years.
This is the show, though, you find at a Comic-Con for like $80 on burned CDRs. They're not even DVDRs. This 90-disc set, it's like 22 episodes.
Yeah. Maybe there's like, people have heard about it in the ether somewhere. Maybe they have a vague recollection like you, but obviously it doesn't work based on what we have here. So my question for you, Will, we should bring in one of our segments, which is the show doctors. Is there a way to save What a Dummy? Is there a way to frame the show around the dummy and make it work? Like the expectation that we get just from the title? And we should say the opening credits is just a zoom in of the trunk, a slow zoom in a dimly lit living room, and then at the very end the trunk cracks open and you see the dummy hand coming out. It looks like a horror movie. This does not look like a fun, wacky show, by the way.
That's why I recommended it for this, because to me growing up, the fall is like very big for me with syndication. Like when I got high school age and people were like dating and hanging out and all this, I was at home watching these blocks from like 3 to 8. So it was like this, it was Outer Limits, it was whatever Trek was on at the time, Viper, Xena, God forbid Hercules, like all this stuff. So like when the leaves start to fall and it gets a little chilly, I start thinking of this. And like when you mentioned the opening credits, it's a spooky, like my family used to go to this fashion show every year around this time. And it was like one of the few times I'm left home alone by myself, because my grandmother was always around. She didn't go anywhere, but she went to that fashion show. So like, I remember distinctly being like freaked out, like by myself at home. And I'm just watching this, but it's October, it's dreary. And so like, that's Halloween to me. And it's not like, there's no supernatural component to this. I think that's what makes me mad, is that in the 22 episodes, I don't remember an origin story, because we need to know, why does this dummy talk? Is there a witch's curse? Is there something? Is somebody's soul trapped in it? That's an easy ticket. Like, is it the uncle? But it's just one of those, like, I don't remember an explanation, but it certainly seems like there should be a supernatural explanation for why we're doing this. I take out the dummy. I just make it a Stephen Dorff show, and it's Tucker's World.
Yeah, I think that would definitely have worked the way they were writing it. However, this is a show that we've covered in the past, but it feels like if you did Erie, Indiana, but the focus, like almost like, the Tucker character, his sidekick becomes this dummy that is kind of influencing the world in a weird way, is kind of bringing in other supernatural elements on a regular basis. So this guy is just trying to be a teen goofball. He's just trying to get girls. He's trying to, play electric guitar too loud in the middle of the night or whatever, And then this dummy keeps getting him involved in different shenanigans. Like, that's what I think. Like, the dummy is a little bit malevolent. Maybe the dummy is like the soul of a kid from the 60s or something who was a ne'er-do-well, who was like a little troublemaker, a little stinker, and then his soul was trapped and they find him in the attic, and then now he's got to live with this dummy who won't leave him alone. And there's got to be like some overarching thing that the dummy wants that he just refuses to give, so he keeps kind of being tormented and foiled by the dummy. Like, I think that would be a lot more interesting, where it's just kind of like off and weird, like, instead of trying to be funny.
I like that. I just have one request, and we can't have both. We have to have one or the other. So either we get to see the human turn into the dummy, he starts as the dummy, and they get to actually end the show. They have like warning, and we get to watch him turn into a boy who hopefully somebody's like, oh, that's Jonathan Brand.
That kind of goes against, for me, then because the dummy in this show is voiced by somebody I've never heard of, Lauren Freeman. I wanted a different Lauren to voice him, because he is someone who I feel is very talented. It doesn't get enough roles. He was an 80s sitcom actor, and then he transitioned to voice acting with Batman the Animated Series. But that is Lauren Lester, the voice of Dick Grayson, who obviously goes on to be Nightwing in the later episodes. Lauren Lester, I feel like, would be able to give like a fun but youthful malevolence to a dummy like that, even though he's not a teenager. He is more the voice I hear in my head that I think would give the attitude that I want for the show. So, but yeah, I think you're right that it needs to be working towards something, and we get to have that reveal at some point. And I mean, it feels like the Casper movie, like when you're saying Jonathan Brandis, it's like, oh, we're gonna have one of those cute teen boys that the girls will like, will be this dummy after all, and he gets his resolution or whatever on the finale. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those strange ideas where I wish there was more about it, because there's no IMDb notes. There's no interviews like with anybody who was involved. That gal that I told you, she passed away in like 2002, so we can't ask her. Like, it's just like, this is lost of time. I'm sure we could talk to Stephen Dorff, but he doesn't want to talk
as he's smoking his e-cigs. He's like, yeah, I remember the dummy. I don't like to talk about those years.
I don't know. I feel like there's also got to be, because I think Stephen Dorff was in that friend group with Saleha Moonfry and all like the young actors in Hollywood. So I bet there were like 3 or 4 other guys who auditioned that didn't get the role, and we're like, oh, I dodged a bullet. Whoever it was back in the day that would have been up for that. So,
well, let's see. Chad Allen could have done it.
What's his face? Who went on to do Fast and Furious?
Oh, Paul Walker.
Guy. Yeah, Paul Walker was in that group too, I think.
So, really?
Yeah.
I still need to watch Kid 90. When it came out, I didn't have Hulu, and like something comes out every day and I just forget things exist. But I really do need to, because I mean, there's some people on there who didn't. Like, I remember when Mark Paul found out he was on there, and he's like, oh, like he was not happy. They didn't know the internet was coming. They're just like, oh, that's just Saleha Moonfry and her dumb camcorder.
But yeah, so there you go. There is your treat for the Halloween season. What a dummy. We have unlocked it. If there is terror in your face when you actually look this up, congratulations. You have experienced what we experienced the first time just turning this on.
And if nothing else, the fact that there's nothing out there, SEO is on our side. So this is just going to help us.
Maybe we will also unearth something. Somebody out there wants the truth to be told about What a Dummy. But yeah, so we will be back next time around to talk about a full season, maybe multiple seasons of a show. We don't know what we're talking about yet, so you're gonna have to stay tuned. Find us on social media at Remember Show Pod, and you can just stay connected. We're always sharing links to where you can view these things. Certainly, you will share the links to what's available for this, but also you can find me at Hoju Coolander on all the socials. Will, how about you?
I'm at William B. West.
And until next time, we're changing the channel.
This has been a presentation of Geekster Media.